content that I've been creating has been doing so well because everyone has a birthday. And so no matter what, whether or not you believe in astrology really doesn't matter because you're gonna know your sign. If at some point in time, you're gonna think about it because everyone wants to learn more about themselves.
I was gonna say that's the universal truth that I feel you're really tapping into is self-knowledge.
Absolutely.
That's a deep cellular desire for all of us.
And connection.
And connection. So let me ask, because this is astrology in general, I think as it is something that we all have different experiences with. But what I'm loving about is the scientific approach, because it's not like there aren't other astrologers who aren't having the same kind of reach and growth. Your scientific approach to it, your acknowledgement, this isn't, yes, there's intuition, but you're actually looking at. So that brings me to it brings me to this question, because you mentioned like meeting the production company as something that was synchronistically, looking at it from the outside, could have been all these elements of chance, but it was this alignment coming together.
Totally.
And I think one of these base questions is, do we have free will? Is it all predestined, right? If you're able to look at, can you just speak, because this is gonna blow my mind a little bit too in terms of how this all works together.
Well, okay, so when you're born, you have your natal chart. So that is always going to remain the same. So your ascendant, where the sun was rising, that's going to be a very significant point of the beginning of your life, the beginning of your chart. And what we as astrologers talk about is that was the moment that your soul met your body. And so that is going to determine essentially the strengths and weaknesses throughout your entire life. Also, depending on that blueprint, I can take that and then also look at where these different planets are always moving and where these eclipses are also happening. So, each planet is moving at a different speed throughout time, and it gives us opportunities or challenges depending on where it is in alignment. And with these destined eclipses, you are going to know that certain things are coming. So that's why I look at astrology as it's predictive, yes, because people are always wanting to know about the future, but it's also productive. Because if I'm telling you that there's an opening for your love life and it's gonna close, you better use that time, because then it's gonna close and then you're not going to have it. And it's gonna become harder. And another thing that I think about too is, so I talk about a lot when I'm teaching, especially personal clients all over the world, is that if you imagine that your life is a garden, you can plant certain things so that the destiny part is when it's open, but the free will is always active, because you have to choose to walk through that door, or you have to choose to plant that seed. It's not necessarily just going to come to you. And sometimes in astrology is that it's basically, it gives you an opportunity to, like I said, take control of everything that you have, but then, try to harness as much as you can of it. And, especially going back to what I was saying is about looking at charting all these different, relationships or work situations or whatever it be, I can realize what is successful in my actions, and so can you. So on a new moon, let's say, you can see, let's say it's a new moon in your love life. So for, people that are in relationships, the goal of love is to always have more love and give more love and fall more deeply in love, because if it's stagnant, then it's never growing, and then that means it's dying. And so, you can plan great dates, you can plan some really lovely, pleasurable things, make some, fantastic food with each other, enjoy each other's bodies, enjoy each other's souls, all sorts of things like that. But if you're single, this would be a great time for you to go join some communities and get involved, go work out at the gym and get out there. You have to do it. And that way, 6 months later, at the corresponding full moon in that sector, that's when we can actually reap in the benefits and the harvest of what we have done on our own. And that's really, really crucial, because, as as I've seen, if I know there's this window in my career, well, I'm going to be crushing everything at that point in time. So that's exactly why I got that job in June. Because I was busting my butt so hard, but I was focusing my energy. And so was it destined? Yes, there was a destined moment that was going to happen in my turning point in my career. But if I'm not doing the work on building my life of abundance, of building my self-worth, of building my relationships, well then it's not going to come to as great a fruition for me.
So while we all have different charts, we all have different I guess influencers, but do we all have the possibility to create that life of abundance? Or
Absolutely.
can you speak a little bit, like, so is it just because you and I won't have the same chart
For sure.
but how does that work, since we're all so different in terms of our...
Well, because of the movement of the planets and the moon and the sun also they create patterns and cycles in our lives, because everything is a cycle. So there's I kind of, as I was touching on before, there's birth, there's life, there's death, and then there's rebirth. It's always going in a circle. And so, when it comes to, let's say there's a new moon, which is always a beginning, an open door in a certain sector of your life. Like, let's say for you, you want to give me something that you want to do. What's really important to you?
Yeah, right now it's getting touching more lives, impacting more lives, and helping as many people as possible live the life of their dreams. Like,
Okay.
that's getting that exposure.
So for you, what I would look at your chart and I would see, because there's different kinds of sectors that are great for communication or television or media or all sorts of things. We would look at that, but then I would also look at your career and your work sectors, because if this is your full-time job, well then that also could fit into those things. So I would tailor your needs, because you would tell me what you're hoping for, and I'm going to say this is when you do it. And that if you do this, it's going to culminate at this point in time. And so, we would look at that strategy, because the same, and that's the big thing that I also teach people, is that love is a strategy, career is a strategy, your life is a strategy, but you're not competing with other people. You are creating that life. You are taking charge of that, and I'm showing you when the opportunity is there for you to strategically get that.
And it's still on us to know what we want.
Exactly.
Right? We have to actually be in tune with our desires or our goals, and they have to be ours. Like, is it the influence of, right? So so you have a gift and a talent in this area, right? Not everyone has sure, we could all study it, we could
For sure.
but there are certain gifts that are coming out from, now those seem to want to be expressed, right? For the people who are most alive, they're living, it's some sort of alignment that's like next level, right? They're
Absolutely.
really, so we have to really get to know ourselves. I think you just have spoken about this self-awareness, because if I want a goal that I think would give me something, but it's not actually in alignment with me, could that create more friction? So let's say I want to, I think a lot of people in career are in this. They've taken a job, they become a lawyer, an accountant, or whatever.
Yeah, totally.
They were supposed to do that. That was whether a family pressure or societal, but that's not really where their heart is.
For sure.
How much do we have to get to know ourselves in terms of really using astrology as a support or a tool or a guidance and stuff like that?
Well, I think the journey of knowing oneself is lifelong. And I think that you cannot, who I was 5 years ago it has allowed me to evolve into who I am now. And I'm constantly, through my interactions with people, through my choices, through sometimes the things that are happening to me, learning more about how I can be stronger, be more vulnerable, be more open to change, to confront my weaknesses, confront my demons, but then also empower the positive things within me.
How do you, as a tip, what is something we can do to be building that mindset of wanting to grow personally, like this self-awareness? What's a tip that you would give us that we could kind of be more open to all those things?
I mean, I think self-reflection is really important, and that's one of the things that I do love about astrology too. But granted, I can chart it, so I know when these certain times are. But if obviously if you know your rising sign, you there's going to be a lot of activity in your identity and in the presentation of your personality. So that's a great time for you to do a lot of being forward and figuring out who I am and what I want. And then also, anytime that there's energy in your sun sign, that is also a similar kind of pattern as well. And so, as I was saying, I'm Taurus. So anytime there's something very active for Taurus, whether that's a full moon or there's something in Venus or something is in my sign, it is about me. But then also what we learn in astrology is that there are several houses or pieces of this circle that are all about the self, but then the second half of it is all about community and people and how we relate to the other half in the mirror to ourselves. And so I think it is crucial to be able to face yourself and say, you know what, this is what I want, and this is maybe not what other people want, or this is difficult for me to come to terms with. And I can even look at a lot of things in the cycles. For instance, so Capricorns this year are going through a very significant transformation, and this began in November of 2018 and is going to essentially be the rebirth moment will happen in the beginning of December of this year for them. They have been digging up all of that karma. They're trying to figure out what they want to keep for the next 12 years of their lives, and really, understanding what needs to grow, what do they ultimately want to go, because as soon as Jupiter, which is the planet of miracles and luck, enters their sun sign, it will stay there for 1 year. It is giving them more luck in every single area of their lives. So every single Capricorn is going through this period of self-assessment and of their relationships. Anything that they keep in that year is going to create a pattern for 12 years, because everything in astrology, as I told you, is a cycle and a pattern. Yeah. However, I can look at other things in people's charts, like, let's say, Saturn. Saturn is the planet of maturity, longevity, but sometimes constriction and hardship as well. It takes roughly about 30 years for it to go around the sun, and each year, for about 3 years, it visits a different area of our life and teaches us a very important life lesson. It usually makes it very difficult. So if it's in your love sector, love feels like hard work. Or if it's in your money sector, money is really tight. Or if it's in your career, it's showing you how you are going to ascend and rise, and you may have to release some things that are happening, and that's exactly what's been happening for me. And so I've had to release certain things that I was doing before, and that's been very difficult and scary. But also, just because you release something doesn't mean that you can't revisit it sometime in the future, or allow it to be reborn, or to come to fruition in a different way.